Today we'll be looking at how to graph using the slope-intercept method. Our objectives will be to recognize the slope-intercept form of a linear equation and to graph using the slope-intercept method. Before we start to look at the slope-intercept form of a line, let me make sure that you understand something. We have already graphed linear equations by plotting points. What we'll do today using the slope-intercept method is another way to get that same picture. I want to make sure that you understand there's nothing wrong with plotting points. This is simply another way to get there. And in some cases, for a linear equation, this may be easier. Plotting points has a value, though, that slope-intercept does not, in that you can graph by plotting points any equation. You can always plug in x's and find the y's that go with them. Slope-intercept only works for linear equations, but for a lot of you, it may be your favorite way to graph a linear equation. First of all, you will recognize that you have a linear equation when it can be written in the form y is equal to mx plus b. Let me just point out that in some textbooks it will be written y is equal to ax plus b, but our discussion will be the same no matter what letter is used there. Let's talk a little bit about this equation. First of all, let's talk about this m. The letter that is in front of the x, in this case we used m, will always indicate the slope of your linear equation. The b that comes at the end will always indicate your y-intercept. Now let's talk a little bit about how we can use those two things. First of all, the m will tell you rise over run. And in just a minute when we start to graph, you'll see how you will use rise over run to help you. If you have trouble remembering which one of these come first, remember they're in alphabetical order. Rise comes over the run. The next thing you want to look at is the y-intercept. Please notice that the y-intercept is actually a point. It is the place where the line intersects the y-axis. So in this case it is 0, b. The y-intercept will always have a 0 x value. So anytime you have a y-intercept, you can always write it as an ordered pair of numbers, 0, b. Let's now try to graph this linear equation using the new tools that we have. We'll start by looking for the y-intercept. Remember, this data right here tells us what the y-intercept is. It is the point 0, 4. So what we want to do then is we want to plot that point. It shows up on the y-axis and it's the location where the line is going to cross the y-axis. Our next piece of information we want to look at is the slope. Please remember that this slope is simply rise over run. That means we should start from this y-intercept and we want to do the rise first. So since it is a positive 1, we would move up 1 position and then we would run. Since the run is a positive 2, we would move to the right 2 positions and that's the next point we would plot. Once you have these 2 points, all you need to do is connect the dot to draw the graph of this linear equation. Let's do another one now and practice these skills. This time I'll give you y is equal to 2/3 x minus 3. If you're comfortable with this, I would suggest you pause the video, do your graph, and then come back to check. If you're not comfortable yet, stay with me on this one and then you can do the next one. Here's our coordinate system, so let's start our graph. First thing we look for is the y-intercept. Well, we'll find it right here, and please notice that that sign is part of it. So your actual y-intercept is the point 0, -3. That's the point we want to plot to start our graph. We come to where x is 0, we go down to where y is a -3, and there's our first point for graphing. Next, we want to look at the slope. This time the slope is 2/3, but let's remember that is still rise over run. From this y-intercept, we want to count our slope. This time we will rise 2, which means we will go up 2, and then we will run 3, which means we will go 1, 2, 3. So our next point will be right here. Once we've done that, we have our 2 dots, and it's simply a matter, of making sure you hit your dots as you go through, of drawing your graph. So there we have the graph of y is equal to 2/3 x minus 3. Let's do one more. This time we have y is equal to a negative 3/4 x plus 2. You can once again pause if you're comfortable and then come back to check. Let's begin with our y-intercept. Please remember that it is the point 0, 2. So when x is 0, y is a positive 2. So there is our y-intercept. Next we want to look at our slope. It is a negative 3/4. Please remember that when you have a negative, you need to apply it either to the numerator or the denominator, but not to both. If you make both of them negative, it is a negative divided by negative, which would be positive. Let me just tell you that for convention's sake, I always follow the same rule. I will place my negative in the numerator so that I don't get confused. So here what I have is then a negative 3 rise over a positive 4 run. So from our y-intercept, we want to count rise first. Well, since it's negative, our rise will move down, so it's 1, 2, 3. And then we will run 4 to the right, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's our next position on the line. Let's remember we're not finished though until we've connected our dots. Hopefully now you can follow along and graph a linear equation by using the slope-intercept method. I want to leave you with this thought. A great marriage is not when the perfect couple comes together. It's when an imperfect couple learns to enjoy their differences. Please enjoy the differences of those who are around you. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.